Hey everyone, this is the CI/CD UX review meeting for February 22nd. And we have a pretty lengthy topic today that we wanted to take last time we met, but we didn't have enough time. So I'm glad that we were able to move it to this. Vitika and I both added this, but Vitika, do you want to take over explaining the background of this first, and then I'll kind of like moderate as we go through each of the items.
Sure. I see that I'm not sure it was supposed to, but the problem statement is like way down in the agenda. So I'll start from there. So just to provide a context, why we have added this as a discussion topic is because with the changes in the last year and all the reassignments that happened in the design team, designers were assigned to new teams, and there was a lack of understanding around which categories, stages their work touches upon. So CI/CD, as of course all of us know, it's a complex topic, and it's difficult for designers who have never worked with related concepts to get a grasp of what could go wrong if they do not consider the impact of their work, the impact that their work has on CI/CD workflows, and vice versa. Um, and I mean, when I say the impact, it's like it could be in the form of duplicated effort, some wasted resources, last minute changes, um, and similar things. So this discussion, we want to focus it around like why we need to collaborate outside our stages, and stages and stage groups, and just trying to understand like what is a good example of a collaboration. What does good collaboration mean for each one of us, and what is the importance that it has in our everyday work, so that we can eventually think of like what steps we can take maybe in future to ensure that we are getting in touch with the right people when we are starting a work, and just like reducing the number of barriers that we have uh, towards reaching a good outcome that works out for everybody. I mean, that's a like blue sky wish, but yeah, getting somewhere close to that. Yeah, Gina, back to you.
Okay, we have a bunch of answers that we have to these questions we added, so I can just start at the top. And also, I just wanted to preface before we start to get into that, I think our team, like the CI/CD UX team, does a very good job at collaborating, and other people in the department realize that, and Hayana has said it multiple times. And I think that the reason I just wanted to preface it with that, because I think we already do a good job. So it's how do we kind of spread our experience with that to other teams and make it just part of the process. Okay. So the first one we have here is examples of what good UX collaboration looks like and what makes it good. And Bonnie responded, so I'll read through her message first. This may be outside the scope of the discussion here, but I think a good UX collaboration occurs across disciplines, including team members through the process, like PMs and engineers. Emily, do you want to voice yours next?
Yeah, so I always, when I'm thinking of collaboration, I go back to like, why does collaboration work well? Because a lot of times when you join a new team, collaboration is a little messy. It's not so straightforward. And I think the main ingredient here is like that trust. And I think we've built it really well in this team because we have a lot of opportunities to not only get together and like review each other's work, but I feel like we also know each other well, and like we kind of have that trust in each other. And I think that is really what builds. So like you could say collaboration is the ability to work together, review, but I think it comes from this like trust and safety aspect that we've done well, but I don't know how that can scale.
That's a great point. Because my next question was going to be like, what can we do to kind of replicate this trust outside the group? But as you said, it's not, I mean, we can discuss about it at length, but it's a very difficult dynamic to achieve outside a small group.
Yeah, and I also want, sorry, I also wanted to add the similar aspect that Emily just mentioned, because I think it's all starting from human. Like we're not just a 2D AI model sitting behind the camera, but I think this full remote environment is really good, but in a way, but on the other side, sometimes it's really easily forget that like they're also another human sitting behind this monitor. So I also put myself quite a lot of time on the social coffee chat whenever there's one-on-one, always starting with non-work related topic, because that's also important aspect to me to get to know more about you and also share like how I live. So I think in that matters, like CI/CD UX teams does really well. And I think so I'll be just very bold because I'm also want to, this is not a problem, but I think we could do better job in terms of the UX department level. And I think Hayana does great way to kind of like foster this kind of like safety, I mean psychological safety environment in a way, so that I could just be myself in this call and I'm not worrying that much. And I also hope like the other peoples would feel the same. And I think the psychological safety is the first aspect, and then the second aspect for the each individual to have in mind is like, okay, we should put a little bit of more efforts compared to the office work environment since we're all remote. So that's what I have seen so far. But long story short, I think we're great. And how can we scale this to the more bigger level? Yeah, I also had like similar thoughts. Of course, no clear solution yet.
Thanks to Jim for the shout out. I'm happy you feel this way. I want to follow up with the question too, V, because and Emily's point, like what is trust? I think you start describing that a little bit, but that feeling of trust that Emily described, right? In collaborating and building up something together with your teams. Are you able to specify that? Are we even able to specify that, right? But in your teams, when you are working with them, when you see collaboration flowing, when you feel like you're able to move forward in your role, what does trust translate into?
I think trust is kind of like the ability to share something that you're not like confident in and not then feel like internally like you're dumb afterward. It's like this feeling that you can share openly and you trust that the other person is seeing it as something that's like you're just building up on. I feel like I don't know if that makes sense at all. It's just the ability to kind of share freely and know the other person knows you're sharing freely is the best way I can describe it.
That I
Yeah, think
totally
that-
agree.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go V.
No, I had the same thing to say that it's the feeling of not being judged when you're posing a question, which is great, I would say. But at the same time, I know like we have a lot of sub values listed, but the value that points at low level of shame, I think we should shamelessly execute that in our everyday work and not be afraid of any sort of judgment because we are just trying to achieve the best results in what we are like pursuing at the moment and easier said than done, but it would be good to like as one of the steps that we can take forward is to consciously like display low level of shame in our communication, especially outside the team, um, so that like eventually maybe when others will acknowledge this like behavior coming from our end, they would also adapt to it and it would hopefully become like a standard all over.
Yeah, I think like what Bitika just said really makes sense. And then I like reading psychology relevant topic. So I think if I'm referring to like one of the examples that I recently read is about, so when there's like three people is doing some random things on the street, and then the other people got affected. So let's say three people just starting to dance on the street. And then like people realize that, yeah, maybe I could also be there and then start dancing. It's just a very popular, well-known example. So I think it really matters, like all of us, if we just do like what we do within this CI/CD UX team, and if we show this behavior to the channel or to the bigger department, I think it definitely affects other and also make them feel better. And yeah, what I want to say is, I don't know, I'm just mumbling, but but I think that makes sense. Long story
It
short.
does, yes. Yeah.
I think to add to that though, it's hard to be the first person that starts dancing.
Very good point.
That we can do in solidarity. Like at least
Yeah.
the whole team can volunteer to be the first one dancing.
I have another follow-up question before move to I think Gina has the next point, which might answer to my question, right? Do you have any examples of that in the wild, right? Of like things that, or best practices, or just, well, that trust that you like to share with others? Because I think so far what I'm getting from this conversation, and well, help me also understand that a little bit, is that, okay, we're doing something here that we want to be able to share with others, right? But I also want to understand, are there challenges outside of CI/CDs that you have spotted that could benefit from, the collaboration model that you and your teams have established? Because I think one thing is just showcasing for showcasing it, right? But a different thing is, well, helping others succeed because you have identified an opportunity there. So there's two questions actually. Are there examples of what that collaboration looks like, and where is it applicable?
I think I wrote this down further, but a good example I think is how social channels, a lot of the one, like when I was on growth, now deploy, they were like 50-50 social, 50-50 like work related. But I found like the UX one, I'm scared to post anything that's not specifically related to UX in. And I think having that social part of it means that there's a bunch of engineers on my team who are in Australia. We rarely get coffee chats, but I know what their hobbies are. I know what they're doing. And I think that helps even with the async communication. But I feel like we don't have a place in UX for anything like that right now, which goes back to the trust. Is when you get to know people, you collaborate with them better. And that like getting to know part, I feel like is lacking. And partially me, I'm don't post on it either because I don't know if I should, or I get that feeling.
You can and you should, right? I know it's I think you know that, but I know the feeling, right? Of yeah, is this a place for managers to have a conversation? It is. Well, that's also why if you were in the UX weekly yesterday, Pedro talked about the, what is it called, Sunju? Because you're part of it, the product design
Studio.
Yeah, that's why you're thinking of this different channel, but anyway, different ways of connecting people. But just wanted to say, everyone can contribute, right? Everyone should be able is able to post whatever they want in the channel. So please don't forget that. So, Simjung, I see you have a comment.
No, I just want to say that like I am glad to know that I'm not the only one, because I was also starting to think like how I post and then what kind of topic I post in the like Geo Lounge channel a while ago. Now it's a pipeline authoring like channel. I think I put a lot of random things that include some cute cat photos and the other things. And I think I always have those kind of feeling of just feeling afraid of putting those things into the UX channel, UX social channel for some reasons, because they're mostly like, I don't know, some design memes there. And then I don't know, I don't feel comfortable to put my random cat photos like she's doing some weird things.
I'm gonna ask something. What's the worst thing that can happen if you post something while you are uncomfortable?
Not really, actually, but I think it's more about just impression on each channel that like they're just like, and then we're busy and then like, oh yeah, maybe I don't post it there, and then I move on to another notification. So, and I think the design studio that really helped because we put like almost 30, more than 30%, 33% of the time. So it's 1 hour call, but almost 50% of the call was focusing on the social aspects. And that was really cool to get to know more about like other designers that I normally like don't work that closely with. And I also added that part below in the agenda. So yeah.
I had a point earlier about examples of the wilds that we would like to share with others, because I've noticed that in the UX co-working channel, that Becca does a really good job of sharing things pretty early and displaying a low level of shame. Like almost every time she posts something, there's always a good conversation, and I feel like whatever comes out of that, I usually take to learn, or I take to improve whatever I'm working on. It answers some type of question. And I think we could do, I don't know if the UX co-working channel is really like the only spot that we could do that, but I think that us as a CI/CD UX team could do the same type of, the way that we share work during our like design meetings and stuff like that, we could share in that channel. And hopefully others will become more comfortable with it as well.
I think that what Sun Jung and also now Gina mentioned, at least to me, goes back to that sense of safety, right? Because I think in general, and I'm speaking for myself, if I'm uncomfortable posting a photo of my cat or a design proposal, it's because I don't feel safe, right? That that I'm doing the right thing. I'm not sure if we're gonna have time to discuss about that, but I think that's a very interesting point for us to chat, because I do see you all doing that and doing that quite often, but is that discomfort something that needs to be addressed, right, in this team? But also, and I've spoken with other designers, I know that more people feel this way, right? The same with the UX weekly. That's why we changed the format. We are trying some different things because people feel like they don't have the room to interact because meetings are all about announcements. And now we try something different this week. And to me, at least, just felt like, okay, managers making more announcements. So I think everyone wants something different. And when it comes to level of engagement, of interaction, but if there is something that you individually feel like that is blocking you or that you want to address, let's chat. Okay, so please reach out so that we can talk about how to mitigate that, how to regain or find that that comfort zone. I actually have a question to Will, being just watching as well, and I have a question because when we talked about in the beginning of collaboration and trust and especially cross-stage collaboration, I think you're the person here that probably has the most interaction outside of just CI/CD, of course, with designers, with PMs, etc. I'm not sure if you already answered this somewhere else in the agenda, but what is something that you think or that you have seen as, you know, as a positive, something that makes good collaboration work between designers and the counterparts as a UX researcher? What are your thoughts?
It's a good question. I think before I touch on that, I did add something in one of my comments down here that like this is something that like the UX research team is talking about, like this idea of like collaboration specifically because like all the individual researchers cover very specific teams, and so there's very little overlap where like, you know, Erica and I work on related stages, so it makes sense for us to collaborate together, but there's still not a situation where like she and I are both on like, you know, a particular stage together. And so we're trying to constantly figure out ways that we can collaborate more as a UX research team, but I also think this applies to what you're talking about. I mean, I think some of the really good examples is like design issues where like, even though I wasn't directly like aligned with a specific team, I was still proactively thought of as like, you know, Will could provide some feedback here in addition to like other designers that may or may not have been on that direct stage or stage group, and just, you know, like tagging those individuals within an issue or a comment to just provide feedback. You know, sometimes there's so many issues, it's hard to be aware of, you know, what gets created and what people need. So I would just say like proactive communication and like tagging people, because there's just so much noise out there, especially like on Slack and on GitLab.
Thanks, Will. Very good points.
Sanjung, do you feel like you went through your point about, yeah, you
Yep.
did 2D models
Yeah,
and stuff
I
like
did.
that?
Yeah.
Okay. I have an example that's related to what Will just said, where I've been involved with CI metrics or insights, I don't know what you want to call it, anything metric related with CI. And I reached out to other designers that actually Darren, my PM, like told me that other groups were working in this area. And then that's how I identified which designers to even reach out to and collaborate with. And I didn't even have we don't have a proposal for this area yet. We've just been like starting to brainstorm and capture research around it, which has been carried out by Erica. And I think some of the stuff that you did, Will, with observability fits in here too. So it was kind of easier to identify which teams it was overlapping with because of the research, first of all. And then also because I had input from higher ups that were able to connect with those different teams. Because I think that allowed me to at least catch up with Graham and Libor, who I really don't have a day-to-day collaboration or meetings with, and then was able to set up coffee chats with them, in addition to tagging stuff. But I've noticed that since we have started that, they have been tagging me on more things, and it's really useful because the stuff that they have is previous work that relates or can impact the stuff that I'm working on. I included an example there of it, the epic that we were looking at, but yeah, I think this also goes back to the whole thing of trust, because I don't, just the async collaboration of tagging people in an issue, I don't think always fosters a good relationship. But then once we like set up coffee chats and we slacked a bit and stuff like that, it seemed like we were all more comfortable, and I've seen an increase in collaboration since then.
So this is just something I'm curious about in relation to the UX Weekly, because I feel like the UX Weekly, a lot of people are like, there's too like you don't get to know designers there. It's mostly announcement based. And I know at my old company when we were remote, Zoom had something called a breakout room that would randomly put a group of people into a separate Zoom. And I'm curious if we'd want to explore where part of that meeting is just a breakout room of like 5 designers, researchers, technical writers, managers, and they just share within a smaller group. And it's just like randomly assigned, you get together, and then you're able to kind of share what you're working with people that you might not usually talk with. There's a little like sync focused for people able to attend, but I don't know if that would be an option.
Yeah,
Used to have
Zoom.
some. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Will.
Oh, I was just gonna say Zoom still has this. I actually participated in a course outside of GitLab where we use this like just the other day.
I was gonna say that we used to have that back in the day before we were, I don't know how many people are in the UX department, when we were 15, let's put it like that. I think in the UX calendar, well, we have the random, like the UX social coffee chats, right? And I think there's also an invite on Fridays for some social time, but I never attended, so I'm not sure if that serves the purpose. But I think it's a good point on, yeah, using the tools we have to experiment, to try some things out.
Yeah, I know I never attended the Friday one because it was like 8 a.m. for me, and it was like a little too early to be social, so I just never went to it.
And on Fridays of all days.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I even remember that we have this company call. Like I remember on my first week I was there, and then like there was some shout out to the new team members. So I was there with like more than, I don't know, 200 people. And we had I was so like nervous, but after that we have this breakout rooms, like randomly assigned people so that I could have a chance to meet like a lot of sales team members, support engineers. So maybe we could do something like that at the end of the agenda, or the beginning of the agenda in the UX call. It's not weekly anymore.
Like that idea, yeah. We don't have to wait for managers to organize anything like this. So go for it. I love that. And also, just before I forget the comment, I want to add, I just created the issue where we can discuss the get together for summit maybe. I'm not sure if there's already anything organized with the UX department for product design, but this could be the moment, right? This should be the moment.
Yeah.
We've been waiting for so many years to get together with people, to build those connections, because I don't think any of you ever attended the summit, but I joined GitLab in November, and then in March 2019 we had the last summit, and it's very different when you meet everyone in person. Like you just build, like you already know people, but then now you're with them, right? You're face to face physically. And I think yeah, a lot of the things that we are discussing here maybe can be addressed at summit, right? In the informal but also formal interactions, and I think it's good to put intention on that as well. Because that's the moment where, well, we're going to be together for a week, we're gonna have the chance to talk a lot about these type of challenges, but also just
Yeah.
non-GitLab thing.
And it's a good thing that we are like thinking of a separate gathering for us, because I like while discussing I thought that we can probably just sit together once with the CI team, once with the UX team. That cannot happen because we'll have assigned seats.
Really?
I didn't
Yes.
know that.
I mean, at least for breakfast, it was mentioned. I don't know about all the other meals.
Where did you find that info, Vika? My anxiety is like skyrocketing right now. Share it with
My
us.
engineering manager, Caroline.
Yeah, I'll
I
ask her.
did.
Oh,
I remember seeing something about this. Like Hunter brought it up in my team too, that he had heard the same thing, and he was also anxious about spending breakfast.
having to make conversation in the morning with strangers. Okay. Do you still have time? What time is it now? 18 minutes?
I think
Oh,
we
we're
still
almost
have
done.
like 10 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Let's double check. Sorry, I'll mute myself.
No, that's okay. I do feel like we talked about a good, we didn't really get into wider impact of product design work. But in the sake of time, I'm wondering if we could talk about that next time, because that might lead to other action items, and maybe it sounds like we've kind of come to a consensus on what we could do next. And I think maybe we should just
Yeah.
figure out what's the smallest thing we could start with.
Yeah. I think yeah, the small little things which do not require any changes to be made, like larger changes, such as sharing more, and I would say something that will shared, or others also shared in the team at some point, that why can't we, like what happened in the UX weekly call, that managers were giving an update about what each one of us was working on. Why can't we proactively just do that on co-working call, that this is what I'm working on, please provide me with feedback. And I'm saying this because I, as a designer, sometimes I feel that maybe it's not like, justified enough to ask for other designers time to provide feedback to me on this particular work, because it's so small. It's like it's just, it's not worth taking others time. But I think even I should get past that feeling, because it's not just about what my idea about the importance of that work is, and it would be just easier for others to identify anything that would interest them from what I'm working on. And something that Erica has mentioned here is also very useful, that just to think a little deeply about when we are designing for a workflow, just like giving it a thought that where are the users coming from when they're coming to this particular workflow. And through that lens, just keeping the designers informed that, hey, I'm touching upon this because, and tagging you here because probably the users are setting up the environment and then coming to this page to check the status of the deployment and stuff.
That's a good idea that Erica said there. Because I rarely, I don't really do that.
And I think this reminds me of like, I think it's also important to set some time, like when we do the milestone planning, because this all takes time. Like I do appreciate like we have our coffee chat and then making issue more explicit as possible, but all of this taking time, and then we should take this into account when we're planning the milestone, and then take those into account when we're weighting the design issue as well.
Yeah, that makes me think that I think sometimes, or I have an assumption that designers feel like if they do share, sometimes the feedback or even getting the feedback is almost like a blocker and slows down the design process. And I don't like, I can't really make words right now, but I want to, I want to not change things so much in our workflows that becomes like the mindset, I guess. When you share something, it's gonna slow everything down because getting feedback. Where I do actually feel like it should slow things down because you should get other eyes on it.
Yes. I mean, it's definitely on top of the mind that if I do this, I might just be, delaying the time to development. But then it happened recently that I was conservative that way, and then I thought, wait, I'm anyway designing things like 3 to 4 months in advance. What am I scared of?
Yeah.
I think it's similar, right? It's not just for designers. It also happens with the engineering. Right? It's the merge request being merged because, well, if I look in a design or technical writer, whatever, this is going to slow me down. But again, where does that come from? It's that's also something to consider as a discussion point. But anyway, thanks for sharing that. I think it's nice seeing you all being so transparent and so vulnerable. You're talking about all the topics. Just want to give a shout out.
Okay, we have 1 minute, I believe. So trying to think, I know we talked about UX Weekly potentially doing breakout rooms and then the smallest things that we talked about above where Erica said to think about the 2 or 3 tasks and Vitika and Sanjung said to plan for this and just like share proactively. Maybe we could all start just our team with sharing proactively in channels about what we're working on. And would one of us maybe want to take action on proposing the breakout rooms for UX Weekly? I don't really know how that would work. So Hayana, maybe you would have a better idea.
Yeah, we can make a proposal in the already in the agenda, right, for the next one. I think it's if Valerie proposes, Valerie or Evan. So it's good to maybe just open up an issue, or I think an issue is good, sort of that information stays centralized. With a suggestion, just talking a little bit about, what would that entail, and because I think what I want to say is see if there is engagement. Do people want that, right? Is it something for that this group thinks it's useful, or others also interested? Because we could pilot that, but check first if there's an audience, and then Valerie can set it up. That's in between.
I feel like
And I also added.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to add this the summit get together also to talk about some of these themes. I don't think I haven't seen any of the managers talking about at least for product design about any activities or any moments where we want to talk about this type of things or just do team building activities. Would you want to meet up with other product designers, right? To talk design, not just have a real life coffee chat. Can we use Summit to address some of these points or something else? So maybe we can start that conversation as well. So feel free to create initiatives. I already created the one for our team. It's in the UX project. Yeah, I can do that, but don't get scared. I think that's one of the, it's a good opportunity for at least one volunteer in this room to just take it on and at least create an issue and start a conversation.
I guess I proposed it, so I can take that on.
Thanks, Emily.
No worries.
I mean, this
Alright.
is a good list.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, I'll add, I think we had two other topics that came up that we might want to talk about in the future that I can add to the backlog table. And I think that's it. All right. Have a good rest of your day / weekend.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. It was great.
Bye.